Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talk, where we share the stories of people living in Taiwan and Taiwanese people living abroad. I'm Trevor Tortomasi, and joining me in the studio today is Isabella Tan, Chen Yingxiu.
你好.
Isabella is a filmmaker raised in Taiwan and Malaysia, also spending some years in the US. Her film work has garnered awards at international film festivals. Hopefully lots more to come. What are you working on now?
I'm working on a documentary that's taking me kind of throughout Asia and London. It's feature length. It's about an very prolific Asian designer.
What other projects do you have coming up? I hear that you have one in Taiwan next year.
I do, yeah. I'm working on a project in Taipei early next year. It's a story that I read in one of the books that I picked up in a library in Taiwan called Taiwan Tales, which is a collection of short stories written by people from Taiwan and people who have lived in Taiwan for a long time. So one of the stories kind of talks about the famous underground market that's in the, I think, Zhongxiao Donghua station.
I was about to ask which famous underground market.
I know, there's two, right? Yeah. The one that I grew up going to, my grandmother used to take me there, was the Zhongxiao Donghua. It's kind of a social commentary on how it's changed in the last 20 years.
What makes Taiwan the perfect place for this project?
For one, I'm quite biased because I was born here and I grew up here. So that alone, there's a lot of memories and heartwarming things that kind of speak to me on a personal level. Secondly, I think Taiwan, and especially Taipei, is like one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And I would love to capture that, on the medium that I've chosen to be an artist on. So
you did spend many of your formative years in Malaysia. How do you think that comes out in the work that you make?
Malaysia was special in the way that it was such a melting pot of culture. Taiwan is very distinctive in its food, its people, its languages, and Malaysia kind of is the same way, except because we have such a big mixture of people. We have Malays, we have Chinese, we have Indians, we have the Westerners that came in.
Sorry.
Yeah, you should be. But it's a massive melting pot of culture, and I think that really helped growing up. I kind of grew up exposed to a lot of different languages, and it kind of made me, I think, a more, at least for myself, a more open-minded person when I was traveling around.
Well, getting to you being in New York City and some of the stuff you worked on there, I mean, there have been some extremely troubling cases of racially motivated violence against Asian Americans in New York City.
Yep.
Has this affected some of the stories you want to tell?
I think yes. There's now a big push for Asian representation in film. And I think right now, though, there is a push for Asian faces to be on screen, which I think is an incredible opportunity for us to knock some of those doors down. And it's been great in the sense that with all this demand coming out, there's this playing field that wasn't there before for a lot of Asian artists to kind of get out there and put their best foot forward and show off our work and show what we can do. I think when I first went to America, I was one of those people that really wanted to fit in with the crowd. And it took me a couple of years to kind of be more comfortable and proud of my identity and heritage. And after that, my last few years in college, I made it a specific point to make sure that I myself as a director and a cinematographer would purposely push for more people of color, especially Asian faces, to be on screen and behind the camera too, actually. It's really important for the people behind the camera to be also people of color because that's the best way you can get people of color on screen. Let's get them behind the screen as well. Because I feel like the more opportunities are given to not just white people, I feel like they will start to tell their own stories. It would be more diverse than what is commercialized or has been commercialized in America. Having more people of color and executive producer seats or directorial seats or, in seats where they kind of make decisions, if they decide to tell stories that are from them, then obviously they would pick people that look like them to represent those. And I feel like that creates a lot more opportunities.
Are there any crazy industry stories from working in a place like Hollywood or New York?
There was a film I worked on in New York City where it was a film that was meant to put women in positions of power in this spy thriller thing that was funded by an organization, and they wanted an all-female crew, an all-female cast, and I was signed on to be the cinematographer for that project. And then we got on set, and obviously, the director was male, and the producer was male, Everyone else was female.
Oh, I was about to say so far so good. And then
Yeah, I know. And it became clear that it was one of those, we're doing it for the right reasons kind of thing, but we're not going to give up our positions of power to women. So
right, lip service.
yeah, exactly. A lot of lip service, and then the producer did some gross stuff.
Okay.
And then everyone walked off set. I mean, it's definitely kind of a weird situation when it comes to legality and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like with the Me Too movement that's happening now in America, people are kind of, a lot of victims are more brave to come forward. And I think that's a really good thing. I think being a female cinematographer anywhere is kind of a commodity, is kind of like, wow, really? You do that kind of work? Because there's so little women. Yeah, there's a little bit of, I think it's becoming more common now. But it definitely was difficult when I started. There was definitely a lot of, oh, really? You're shooting today?
Oh, okay.
You know, and that kind of thing. And a lot of proving myself through my work. But yeah, we're doing better than we did 10 years ago. So
Okay, awesome.
Can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I just need to flood the market with more creators who are able
Or
to
women,
show.
and
Yeah.
especially Asian women, for sure. Like, it's important that everyone gets represented. I think in Asian culture especially, we're taught to be more reserved. So I think it's important to give women, especially Asian women, that outlet as a filmmaker to be able to tell their stories.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes a lot of people surprised when they see Asian women on set, especially as a director and as a DP.
And how has your filmmaking process been affected by the pandemic? I have to ask the question.
You know, it for many reasons, though, it was really good for a lot of artists, because I feel like, especially in such a hustle culture as New York, and in cities have this like big hustle mentality. The pandemic kind of forced us to all slow down. And even though work really suffered, I think for a lot of people, it personally made me and a lot of people that I know reflect personally. And we finally had time for something that we usually wouldn't have time for, because on set we're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, nonstop, morning till night. And, you know, everything's just about the work that we're putting out there. So being able to have that time to kind of sit and reflect and, you know, all that kind of stuff was really, really good for a lot of people. And a lot of collaborators I know actually are leaving the commercial industry and going back into like indie work or narrative work, specifically because, yeah, they just had time to kind of sit with themselves and think for a second. And
Simple question. What is the most difficult aspect of making films for you? Right after we talked about the pandemic, so you can't use that one.
I know. Making films. I think the most difficult aspect is to make sure everyone's happy.
That's a really good aspect. Wow.
I mean, in the film industry, it's really hard to do that. It's probably impossible to really do that. Near impossible.
The mini sandwiches don't have enough ham in them. Like,
something like that. There's not enough red M&Ms on the table. But it really is more about the fact that it is a draining job. It is a laborious job. They have unions in America for that, for a reason, because the work
Naive
hours...
question. Do they not hear?
No.
Oh. So when I look at the camera, sorry, yeah.
I think there is one, but from what I know from my producer friends in Taipei, it's pretty non-functioning. So I think keeping everyone happy is hard. Making sure everyone is paid really, really well, also very difficult, because
Also very difficult.
there are so many aspects of filmmaking. Money. So of course you have the commercial jobs that are high-paying jobs, but maybe a little bit boring. On the boring side, and then you have the really creative jobs like music videos and short films, and of course those never have that much money, so it's kind of pendulum swings both ways.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Does spending so much of your life in sort of big cities, in and around big cities, compel you or drive you away from telling more big city stories?
It does both. I definitely admit that I am always kind of casting an eye on outside of big city stories. And the Taipei is such a great place for that, because, you know, you get on the train and 2 hours later you're like in this beautiful mountain village somewhere. And
yeah. It feels like you're leaving Taipei and entering Taiwan, for sure. What has been your biggest inspiration?
I took a Chinese cinema class.
Oh, nice.
And it was actually a really wonderful class. We watched so many movies, a lot of classic movies and a lot of modern movies from like Wong Kar-wai and Li An and Fly. Yes,
okay.
Zhang Yimou. Good.
That's actually the only other one I can remember right now. So
yeah, so I watched all those films and I was so inspired by the way they kind of told these stories that were so common isn't the right word, but there were such relatable everyday life stories. At least about falling in love and loss and dealing with identity and dealing with immigrating to different countries and sexuality and all that kind of stuff. Because before that, I was honestly inspired by like Lord of the Rings and those really, really, really big films. And I was like, yes, I want to make those.
And you realize there's a lot to say with just about everyday life.
I know. And it was so nice.
And
kind of like
lower production cost. Hey.
You'd be a good producer.
Okay.
Like, let's cut the budget down by a little bit. I mean, I still want to make Lord of the Rings, don't get me wrong. But I feel like it made me realize that it's not all about the theatrics and not all about, you know, the big special effects and not about this or that. A lot of it's about just like stories about everyday life. And those stories are so important. And I think a lot of people, you know, always look for the big, exciting action movies. And I've come to really love those films through Taiwanese cinema. I mean, even this film that came out last year called, like, I think it's Little Big Woman. It was such a beautiful and very relatable story. And I think it was just wonderfully told. And it was such a simple tale. And even the one coming out this year, American Girl, which is about this Taiwanese, this young Taiwanese child that, like, went to America and then came back to Taiwan and kind of had to reckon with kind of feeling like an outsider in her own country.
Right. Yeah, reverse culture shock is definitely a thing.
It's something.
What project are you the most proud of?
Every project I'm proud of.
Okay, nice. Next question.
I feel like it's one of those questions where
it's tough. Sometimes people are like,
hard.
This one we spent the most money on. So
I mean, I can say this. There is one project that I loved, mostly because it was such a passion project. And I mean that in every sense of the word, budget-wise, labor-wise. It was like a family unit. 2/3 of everyone that was on set was from different parts of Asia. And we all gathered in the deserts of Nevada. We all gathered.
Okay, it wasn't Burning Man.
No,
it wasn't Burning Man.
Burning Man was not a film project that I made, unfortunately. No, but we gathered in Death Valley and we shot this music video for almost no money, but it was the most well-run set, even though there were like 6 of us present. But that was one of my favorite projects because it kind of, it reignited that spark in me. I was doing commercials for a while before doing that music video, and it kind of reminded me what it was like to make art with your family, your chosen family, and it was really fun.
Your tribe.
My tribe.
All right.
Burning Man.
Burning Man, right. You go in calling it a family, you come out of Burning Man calling it a tribe. And where can people find your work? I'll help you out. You gave me a website, Isabella Tan.
I know. It's such a gross website, though. I don't want anyone to go on that website.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of remaking it.
So here's a game. Everyone, there exists a website full of her work that she doesn't want you to see.
Some of them are really like intense drama pieces. If you're talking about kid-friendly, then I shot for Sesame Street. And
oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super wholesome. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go for it. We'll finish the interview later. Talk about shooting for Sesame Street.
This was a couple years ago, but I had a friend who called me out for a job. She couldn't tell me what it was. It was a small program for Sesame Street, and it was about kids learning the alphabet. And this specific one that I shot was I, the letter I, for my name. No, it was I's for instrument. So all these kids showed up with all these little drums, and they would kind of talk to the cameras and tell them what this instrument was. And I learned a lot on that set that day. Okay. And it was on Sesame Street, and that was really cool.
And you learned a lot about polyrhythms from the count. 1, 2. I'm still thinking about the count teaching polyrhythms. That's like my new favorite Sesame Street program. So
you can find my work online on Vimeo. I haven't put it on YouTube yet. You know what? Hit me up on Instagram and I'll send it to you.
And that does it for Taiwan Talk, the show where we share the stories of people living in Taiwan and Taiwanese people living abroad. This has been Isabella Tan. Thank you for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, I am Trevor Tortomasi on ICRT FM 100. Hey there! I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to hear more from ICRT, you can check out our other podcasts. We've got Taiwan This Week, a roundup of the news in Taiwan every Friday, English in the News for useful English expressions explained in Chinese, and EZ News, spelled with the letters E and Z, for simplified daily news. For some lighter news in both English and Chinese, check out News Bites and News for Kids. And if you enjoy them, tell a friend. Thanks for listening.